Hi, I'm Misha, and if you're new here, I'm writing the first draft of a sapphic psychological thriller, and I wanted to spend some time today just having a little bit of a chit chat with all of you. And I wanted to go over some of my reflections on doing 50,000 words in a month, which if you're new here, I'll go ahead and link some of those past videos below of my July writing challenge. I did a couple of vlogs as well as a monthly writing goal video that explains more about this challenge. But if you're familiar with NaNoWriMo, I essentially did a July-a-Rimo and I had an extra day too. I did meet my goal and I wrote 50,000 words in the month of July, which means my total manuscript was at 70,785. It was actually a little bit above that when I finished my goal. One of the things that I've really learned from doing that challenge is that for some reason, I have this impression of myself or this idea of myself that I actually don't do well under pressure, which if you've seen some of my videos might seem like I'm not self-aware. Sometimes we just have weird ideas of ourselves and we're like, yeah, I don't think I do that. And then you're like, but here's all of the reasons that counteract that logic or that belief that I have about myself. For some reason, I felt that way, especially before joining YouTube. It's also the fact that I'm not someone who procrastinates either. Typically, if I have a goal, I love to achieve it early, and I'm pretty motivated to do that. I think so many elements of life are already pressure-filled and stressful. I don't necessarily want to just add that on to myself, and I kind of did that with this challenge. What I learned from that is, one, that I can do it, but also two, Two is that I don't want to do that to myself necessarily. 50,000 was just really intense. There are really good parts about that. Like for one, I was so in my book and I pushed myself to write on days that I didn't otherwise feel like it, which honestly is most days. I never really feel like writing. No, that's not true. It's kind of like working out where you're like, I feel so much better after it, but it's that debate that you have in your brain of that back and forth. You're like, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? Then when you do it, you're like, this makes my life so much better, of course. Because I was doing it every single day and it was pretty high word counts that I had to reach. I think it put a lot of pressure on me when my life felt a little bit overwhelming. For context, I went back to my parents' place. They live in Ontario. I live in Montreal. I was going there while they were going off to London, where my sister lives, and visiting her and my nephews. She just had a baby earlier this year, so they were going to visit them. My aunt lives with my parents. She has dementia, and my mom is her full-time caretaker. I went in to basically support with taking care of my aunt while my parents were in London. Being in their space, so they live kind of in the middle of nowhere. I kind of felt like I was quarantining a little bit because I couldn't really leave. I was working while I was there as well. So I worked 9 to 5. I was taking care of my aunt, and then any other spare time I had, I was just writing. It kind of pushed me to write a lot more, and I had that space because otherwise I would have likely been seeing friends. I would have likely gone to my studio that I go to for workout classes and yoga. And I normally have more of a steady routine in terms of my social life and other classes and hobbies that I have. I also take dance classes. It kind of took away a lot of other things, even though taking care of my aunt was a lot. And of course, like full-time, like caretaking is just a big job and it's a lot of invisible labor. I admire anyone who is a caretaker for anyone, really, because it's just a lot. Weirdly, it did cancel out a lot of things in my life, which meant that I kind of-ish had more time than I otherwise would. I didn't have to say no to people, and I think that really gave me energy. I could literally just focus on this book in any spare time that I had because I was basically just at my parents' house and not going anywhere for those 2 weeks. If I were to do this challenge, I would have to be really intentional about the when, because I would want to make sure that my schedule is lighter, that work is feeling not as heavy. I mean, I can't control everything. This is supposed to be a lessons learned, and I'm clearly processing things as I'm talking to you guys as well. But I guess at the end of the day, I can't control everything. I mean, there's always going to be stuff happening. There's always going to be a lot of noise. As much as I would like to control all of that, I would like to be intentional about the month. I think there is some element of control that I do have and insights into like the pace of my work and what seasons are heavier and what seasons are not. But things come up. I would just be more intentional about when I would do a challenge like this again. Like, for instance, August this month is Pride in Montreal. And so there's a lot of stuff that I want to be in the community with. And I want to be a part of a lot of these queer events, and that's really important to me. So that's something that I'll be doing, and that's going to be taking away from some of my writing time, but it's also something that I care about. Things like that, I think I have to keep in mind because my life was fully writing. It really felt like I was working, I was editing YouTube videos, taking care of my aunt, and writing. And that was really it. That pace is just not sustainable, at least for me. I think if I were to do this type of challenge again, I would probably cut it down to maybe like, I would even do 40,000 words. I think that would feel a little bit more manageable, or even 30,000, because then it's like 100,000. It would be like 1,000 words a day, which I think is more manageable than the 16 or something. Actually, it was a little bit less than that because I had 31 days. I think regardless, I am really proud of myself for completing this challenge, but I don't know if I would do something like that again to this level of intensity. I'm glad that I tried it out. I'm glad that I know that I can clearly do okay under pressure. But I don't know if I want to just make writing feel like pressure. And I don't want to shift that relationship into something that's not joyful. I don't mind deadlines. I think that is something I actually do really well with. But again, 50,000 words. First draft too. Like, it's a first draft. That's when you're like pulling teeth sometimes, being like, I don't know what is going to happen next. So in terms of the positives, I felt so in my story. I felt like I was dreaming about it. I was feeling it. And even when I didn't feel like writing, I was like envisioning scenes a lot of times. It would almost disrupt my working time sometimes because I would feel like writing so much during my work day, but I can't. Because if you have a 9 to 5, obviously, you know, that you can't really, unless you have a very chill 9 to 5 and you're able to kind of do a lot of other stuff during it. I don't work a chill 9 to 5. Mine's a little bit on the intense side, which seems to be a theme in my life. Another thing I feel really good about is just the fact that I am getting really close to finishing this first draft. This feels almost a little bit bittersweet to me. I feel like I really enjoy the first draft process, which is why I want to keep it a little bit more sacred. I mean, I'm not traditionally published right now. I'm not working under high levels of pressure, so I feel like I don't need to add crazy amounts of pressure to myself. I'm still going to make goals and deadlines for myself and have those self-imposed deadlines for sure. I'll continue to be doing that. I don't need to make writing a job. You know, I want to be able to maintain my relationship with it. I know that if I am to go on to publish, if I somehow, you know, get a literary agent, all that stuff, and everything goes smoothly in the future, that is something that I would have to sort of shift my relationship with it for certain change if that were to all happen, because you'd be working under stricter deadlines, you'd be working with an editor, and you would have a shorter amount of time to be able to get through each draft. But I'm not there right now. I'm not there. So I don't need to be doing that. That being said, I still want to complete my draft by the end of August, and I really feel like that is doable. I do feel Act 3, I'm like a couple of scenes. I know I said this in my vlog and I didn't really mean it in my vlog, but I am, now I really know, because I did another bullet point list of the scenes that need to happen before Act 3 starts, and it's like 3 scenes. Whenever I write Act 3s, they're quick. I usually do 3-act structures. Sometimes I do 4 actually. I am feeling that coming, and Act 2 is always the longest. I always make Act 1 super long, and then I need to condense it quite a bit. Act 2s are naturally quite long, and then Act 3s, I just fly by. So we'll see how this one goes. I mean, every book is different. You can't really know how long a book is going to be. It's going to be as long as it needs to be, and so I'd really like to complete it in August, but I don't know if I can necessarily set a word count limit for myself. Like, I can't say it's 30,000 more words, because it could be more, it could be less. I might do something along the lines of setting a higher goal than I think it's going to be, then just seeing if I need to surpass it or not. I mean, if I don't finish in August, that is also okay. I have September to be able to work on it as well. Another thing that I learned from working through this challenge, the writing 50,000 words in a month, is that I think I'm not writing as sloppily as I thought I was. I mean, first drafts are going to be not great anyways. It's not like it's like a fabulous draft, but I still feel like I can see my progression over my years and years of just writing and practicing. It's not as sloppy as I think past first drafts have been that I've written, which I think is a good sign. I think the stakes are higher here. I think there's a lot of learnings I've had from drafting and editing and revising other manuscripts that I've written. I don't necessarily read back what I wrote. I'll read back like what I wrote the day before, just so that I'm caught up and I remember every little nitty-gritty detail. And I'm always a little bit nervous about reading it because I'm like, oh God, am I just gonna cringe at my own writing? And I'm not. It's actually not bad. I think there's a lot more I need to probably add and obviously edit and blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff is going to come. I was worried that writing as fast as I'm writing, especially in the month of June, that it would just be really sloppy. And I think if it was sloppy, that's okay too, because a lot of my first drafts are very sloppy. And that's what editing and revising is for. The first draft is just to learn the story. It's not meant to be good. It's meant for you to understand the story. And then editing and revising is to be able to make it better. So even if it was sloppy, that's also okay. I don't mind that because it's a first draft. But it was interesting to look back and be like, you know what? I'm not mad at this. I'm not mad at it. But I haven't read back like everything, and especially all together. That's going to be an interesting one. I'm always a little bit nervous to do that. These are some of the things I'm like learning about myself, even as a writer, and what I prefer. I think process-wise, every book is different, and you're going to have to create it differently and learn what it needs and how it wants to be made. This one, I'm writing it a little bit faster, but also I have been with it for a while. Like I've been with it for at least a year and a half. And I wrote the 20,000 words that I scrapped. That's the first video I made on this channel, was talking about rewriting this draft, especially when that was just not working. In an ideal world, I think what would make 50,000 words in a month possible and not feel as intense as it felt was if I wasn't working. I think I was putting so much pressure on myself on the weekends to have higher word count goals to make up for not being able to write as much during the week. It worked, but it's not something I can sustain. Like after I was done the July challenge, I took a couple of days just to take a break from writing so that I can start feeling my characters more. I can start envisioning them more, thinking about what the next scenes are going to look like, thinking about some of the question marks that I currently have and how I can resolve them and not make sure that they don't drop. There's one character that I keep forgetting about. And what's funny is in a previous vlog, I had mentioned that I love this character and I want this character to have more scenes. And I keep forgetting about her. Because you know what, she's not important right now. I'm gonna have to think about this and maybe think about it more in the second draft of, is this just something that I think is fun, or is this something that adds to the story? I don't know, because I have no perspective right now. I don't have any perspective because I'm in it. I'm in it right now. And so I will get perspective, but I don't at the moment. Something that's really important during first drafts is not even just the drafting part. It's also the part where I am just thinking or evaluating or listening to music, and I would need time and space to be able to do that. There were so many points at which where I was like, you know what, we're just gonna get into writing mode. We're just gonna listen to some music and we're gonna get into writing mode and we're gonna write. Whereas I think I would normally allow myself a little bit more space and time, where sometimes I'll even have an evening where I'll write a little bit, but I'll spend a lot of it listening to music that matches the scenes or finding music that kind of aligns with the scenes that I'm writing and really letting myself imagine the scene. And a lot of times when I'm imagining the scenes, I'll sort of be like, ooh, not that. And then I'll imagine something shifting a little bit or a character saying something different. And I'll be like, that could work, or not that either, or let's think about this a little bit more. How can we move this along in a way that makes sense? And a lot of that's just thinking and pausing and reflecting and taking walks and taking longer showers, having this time where you're not doing anything, you're not consuming anything. Having these pauses, I think, really help my process. That's something I can add in even when I have higher word count goals for myself. But the 50,000 words in a month was so high that I was only really able to take those pauses and have that time to think during the weekends. But on the weekends, I was also editing the YouTube videos that I was making and taking care of my aunt and trying to meet the higher writing goals that I had made for myself, because I can't write as much during the week just due to the fact that I work a lot. That was something that I think is actually really important to my process and something that I really want to maintain moving forward. I've actually been able to have some of that time to just imagine the scenes, and that has been game changing. That helps me move the story along, that helps it make sense moving forward, so that when it comes time to revisions, I don't have to, I will still probably have to do big revisions anyways. I want it to flow as much as it can right now. I don't just want to write a draft to write a draft. I want to genuinely learn what the story needs to be so that I can then go ahead and rewrite it in the best way possible. To do that, I need to do actually more than just writing. That's something that I think I also learned from this process, is that writing 50,000 words, it was really good. And I think it was perfect for July. I made it work, and I'm really glad that I did. But there's so many other elements of the first draft process that don't have to do with writing that I actually need, and I need to prioritize sometimes over the writing itself. I don't want just the words on the paper to feel like this achievement at the end. I also think there's those elements of thinking and processing and imagining and listening to music, all of that is a part of what makes the first draft journey for me really enjoyable. And I don't want it to not be fun. And I think it was fun. It was really fun to be able to make so much progress in my story in such a short amount of time. First drafts, I typically write I'm on the quicker side of writing them, because I spend so much time prepping. And what I call prepping, it's a lot of imagining, like doing character sketching. I do a lot of that for a long time. I'll write journal entries for the characters and do a little bit of exploratory work there when I'm ready to actually write. The first draft process is already quite quick for me. It always has been. And so I don't need to speed it up more than it already is naturally for me. An exploratory period of my life, which is very much where I am trying new things, exploring different hobbies, likely connecting with people a lot more, just doing new things. A lot of that feeds into my story, and a lot of times that's where I will get ideas from. It's from living. When it comes down to writing time, and when I start having those ideas, usually a character comes to me. That's when I'm like, oh, we need to do some digging. And sometimes that can take up to a year of trying to understand a character enough to begin writing them. I love first drafts, and I want to continue loving first drafts. And I'm worried that if I put too much pressure on myself in the way that I did maybe in July, if I maintained that kind of pressure for my own drafting process, I'm worried that it might taint my relationship with the first draft. Another thing that I want to mention that is more on the positive side is that I typically am someone that errs on the side of trying to make things perfect. However, I don't usually put that into my first draft. I put that into my revision stage process, but I can really see how NaNoWriMo or the 50,000 words months in any month that you choose can really help push past some of that perfectionism, especially if that's holding you back from drafting or from writing at all. I don't necessarily struggle with that during the drafting phase as much as I do in the revision phase, where I think it does help me in some ways and also holds me back in other ways, I will admit. Those are some of the things that I have learned throughout this process, and I'm really excited to continue going and moving this draft along. Thank you so much for watching this video and following along with my journey writing this first draft. I hope all of your writing goals are going away. I love hearing about your project and what all of you are working on, and I'll talk to you all very soon. Bye.